When I used to film with a videographer and I would fly to Detroit, predominantly when we were promoting my real estate business, I wouldn't have a choice but to shoot 4 hours. But even then, we would break it up and spend maybe 2 hours in the field. We do 2 hours in studio. So it had a nice little
Yeah,
balance to it, right? The danger about batching content for many people, if they don't, align with a similar process as yours, Joe, where you're ideating, then you're scripting, and then you're shooting. If you don't do it that way and you just batch all this content in one day, I promise you, the content will start to sound the same. Now you won't know it
yeah,
in that moment, but once it goes into post production and you clip it out all out, you'll find yourself saying certain things in almost all the content because it wasn't properly planned, and so you're only going with the things that are most top of mind. Even though you're getting maybe different topics, somehow or another you're gonna weave in these same sticky statements, these same basic principle thoughts, and then you're gonna be like, "Dang, I wasted 4 hours of shooting all this stuff. It all sounds the same. I can't put this out back to back to back." What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Believers in Business podcast. I'm your host, Brian Adamson, and let me just tell you right now, before you think that you got something else to do, you don't. Because if you stay here and listen to this podcast that I'm about to have with this gentleman, I guarantee you at the end of it, you will learn to make more money. I don't care what you do in life. I don't care what your business is. I don't care what your current revenue is. You will make more money if you listen to this podcast in its entirety, and make no mistake about it. And y'all can confirm it in the comments when you get done. I have with me the lead generation expert, the organic and paid advertising expert, the PR expert, the build your brand online, the make more money if you listen to him, the one and only Joe McCarthy with me here today. And Joe, welcome, man. Thank you for your time today and coming to share with the audience.
yeah. Appreciate you having me on, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, as y'all know, okay, I do due diligence on everybody that comes on here, and it's funny that in my due diligence on Joe, a couple things I learned. Okay, one, we think alike a lot, right? I listen to a lot of Joe's content, which we're gonna get into here in a minute, and we definitely speak the same language. But in addition to that, Joe prospected me in 2021. I'm scrolling through
Oh,
emails
that's
looking
fun.
for his profile, and I'm like, why is this guy's name in my inbox, right? So he's true to what he does. I appreciate that so much, and I'm just excited about this conversation, right? Because it's not every day I get somebody that thinks very similarly, that behaves very similarly, and that has done a tremendous amount. Over 7,500 people you've helped in counting. And so tell us, Joe, typically we go back, right, and kind of understand where it started. In your particular case, I just may want to do that. I normally start where we are, but I'm very curious as to how old you are, one,
Yeah,
and secondly, how long have you been in the space?
yeah. So I'm 22, so I'm
Okay.
definitely younger than the average. And the funny thing is I started technically in high school, so I was probably in like ninth or 10th grade.
Okay.
Probably 15-year-old kid. You can go on a lot of other podcasts. I talk about like my time at the farm. Like I grew up on a small farm. I basically sold like chicken eggs and like basically like chickens, like full grown chickens. And I would use social media to market that. So like I would download Instagram, download Facebook when I was like 14, 15 years old. Grew a small brand by just posting my daily life and updates on the farm. And I use that to sell these products. So, I mean, it goes all the way back to, me being like a 8-year-old kid raising chickens and just having that business mindset of like, okay, I make something, I grow it and I sell it and I make money.
So some had lemonade stands, you had chickens you were selling, right? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
I
see.
just
I
sold
like where this is
product.
going already. Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, for those of you that's out there listening, yes, he is 22, and unlike normal 22-year-olds that get on their soapbox and talk about a bunch of stuff that they haven't done yet, he actually has, and that's why I'm so impressed with Joe and his body of work up to this point. And that's why everybody listening to this, you will learn how to make more money, but more importantly, not just learning it. If you apply it, you will make more money. Because I practice a lot of what Joe preaches, and it just works. Okay, and so to that end, let's talk, because this is something I'm very passionate about, and I'm noticing your content that you are as well. This is probably the thing that I have to tussle with most with all of my coaching clients. Content creation, Joe. Tell them
Hmm.
why it's important, Joe.
I think they know why it's important. I just think for some reason they don't have a deep enough reason why, and that makes them inconsistent, or they just don't have the direction. They don't know what to post. They don't know why they're posting, and then that just burns them out, and then they obviously just quit.
Mm. He said, I think they know.
I
I
like, for
believe you.
instance, we know
I,
we got to be
no,
fit,
no,
right?
I believe you. Like I know,
Yeah,
I know that they know, but I don't think they understand how damaging it is to
yeah.
their brand, to their business when they don't do it consistently, Joe. What happens when you show up, you make a splash for 2 days, and you disappear for 2 months, and you show up again, you make a splash for 2 days? What happens, Joe? Tell them what happens to their business when they do that.
I mean, but you basically start at square one. Like, there's actually this funny analogy. This can be used for fitness, content creation, but you almost want to think of like building your brand and posting content as like, let's say you have a glass and you have like an eye drop. You drip, drip, drip. It's like you're making little progress. You make a little post. You're staying consistent. You put on your story. It's like you're dripping this like eye drop thing into this glass, and it doesn't look like it's growing. Like, it maybe 30 drops is like it's barely making an inch. And it's like they see that and they're like, I just did 30 posts, I did X, Y, and Z. And it's like, and I'm not making progress. Like, they think it's gonna just be like this pitcher and just and then it overflows and they get the result. But that's not the case. And then what's even more unfortunate is like they do like 50 drips, right? And it's like barely making a dent. And they're like, screw this. And then they go back to square one. So that's what I see so much is like they just, they put they make a little bit of an indent in creating this brand and building this page and creating this offer and making money. But then, like, as soon as they go a month or even 2 months or 3 months without seeing results, it's like they just quit and they go back right to square one.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And one of the things that I preach is that the three motivating factors for people to buy is that they know, like, and trust you, right? So what happens is when you show up inconsistently for them in your community base, your free content, then one would imagine if I give you some money, you're probably going to be inconsistent after I pay you too, right? And so, we only get one time to make a first impression. I know you're big on that as well, Joe. And I'm real big on not just stating problems without solutions. So talk to the people out there, Joe, that have something that's great to offer to the marketplace, but they are struggling in the area of content creation. How do they get better? Hey, real quick, if you are a coach, consultant, business owner, aspiring business owner, you want to start making more money online. Maybe you stuck at that 5, 10, 20K a month ceiling. Maybe some of you are still in ideation mode. You're just like, I got to get out of this job. I know I got something in me I need to give birth to, but you can't quite figure out how to either scale it or start it. Make sure you come to our Purpose to Profits Challenge. My partner David and I are going to be showing you how to successfully grow your business online, helping you with content creation, helping you with marketing strategies, helping you with sales, fulfillment, the whole nine. Showing you our exact systems on how we went from not making 6 figures a year, not multiple 6 figures a year, but 6 figures a month and even sometimes 6 figures in a day. If that sounds like you, make sure you click the link in the description, sign up for the challenge. General admission is only $17. All right, $47 for the VIP. If you want to spend 1 hour exclusively with David and I each day and ask all of your questions specifically, make sure you get the VIP ticket. We will see you there and get back to the episode.
I think a lot of people, they just need to do that deep work, the foundations. Like, a lot of times they'll skip the deep work and skip the foundational things and go right into content, and that's why the message isn't sticking. So what I have all my clients do, like the first few weeks of my entire program, it's not like us creating thumbnails and hooks and like posting and editing and all this. That comes later down the line, right? The first few weeks is like, let's just get like crystal clear on like, what do you even stand for? Like, what's like the biggest I guess like motivating factor for even creating this content in the first place. And you need to get crystal clear on like, who's your target audience, what do they need help with the most, like what's going to hit the heart of what they need to hear, that's going to make them want to share your content, give you a DM, follow up and sign up on your programs. It's like you need to figure out all that stuff first and get clear on that, and then you can move into like creating this content. So the
Yeah.
first few weeks is like, let's just get clear on the targeting. How do we speak to our ideal audience in a way that's actually going to resonate with them and like produce results? So that's like square one, is like get crystal clear, and then we'll move on to like the more fun stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Clarity is a gift, and it's no different than you get in the car, you put the address in your GPS of the destination you're going to, right? And when you do that, you drive with a lot more certainty because you know what the destination is.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you didn't put that in and you're in new territory, new terrain, you're gonna be a lot more tentative when you're driving. So much so that you may even just pull over out of frustration to get something to eat and just say, "Screw this! I'm gonna figure it out later. I'm going back home." Right? So I think creating content, to your point, is just the same. Once we can get clear on what's the destination, who's our avatar, what's the payoff for those individual, and we know specifically who we're speaking to, then it becomes a little more easier to be consistent because we know who we talking to and what we're talking to them about.
And you're also seeing better results. It's like you could go post like 5 mediocre pieces of content in a week, and it's not hitting your audience the right way, and you don't get engagement, you don't get reach, and obviously you're not making money. So that's also a big demotivator. Is if you're posting all this content and it's just not reaching people, and you're not seeing that ROI, both on like just the investment and the time put into it, it's like that's super demotivating. Versus you actually take the time to get these foundational steps in place first, and then you create the content. Now all of a sudden it's sticking, it's hitting with your audience, it's resonating, you're getting the shares, you're getting the likes and the views, and then eventually you're even making money. You're getting clients and people are actually signing up on your offers.
For sure, for sure. What's your thoughts on batching content?
I think it's a great idea. I think you kind of have to. I clarify my process a little bit, like even deeper. Is not just creating all this content in one day, but I like will deliberately do different steps throughout my weeks. So I love the idea of batching content in general. But what I'll do is like Monday and Tuesday is almost like my ideas phase. Is like I come up with new ideas. I do research. That's super important. So like what I would do is gather a handful of people that are in your space. Let's say you're in the fitness space, go look at like 5 people who are absolutely dominating in fitness on Instagram, go through their content, see what's going viral. And you also want to like dissect that and like deconstruct it. You don't want to take it and just outright copy it, obviously, but just see what's working and just kind of like find those trends that's actually working. And then what I'll do is towards the middle of the week, that's when I'll actually script my content. So I'll write down like kind of like what I'm going to be saying for these videos. That way I at least have some idea of like where my reels and my content's flowing. And then Saturday or Sunday, that's when I'll actually sit down and film the content. And I'll do 5, 10, 15 reels in one day, and then I'll schedule that out for the next couple weeks. But what I see a lot of people doing is they'll hear batch content, which they think, okay, let me like sit down for 4 hours on Saturday. I'm gonna come up with ideas. I'm gonna script it. I'm gonna film it, and like that takes different like energy, right? Like you want to be in like a creative process if you're like creating content and all this, but then it's like there's more analytical mindset going into like researching, right? If you do all this on one day, just it gets very overwhelming. So I take it that one step deeper and kind of like schedule it out on like different days.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. I'm somewhere in the middle on batching content, right? So when I used to film with a videographer and I would fly to Detroit, predominantly when we were promoting my real estate business, I wouldn't have a choice but to shoot 4 hours. But even then, we would break it up and spend maybe 2 hours in the field. We do 2 hours in studio, so it had a nice little
Yeah.
balance to it, right? The danger about batching content for many people, if they don't, align with a similar process as yours, Joe, where you're ideating, then you're scripting, and then you're shooting. If you don't do it that way and you just batch all this content in one day, I promise you, the content will start to sound the same. Now you won't know it in that moment, but once it goes into post production and you clip it out all out, you'll find yourself saying certain things in almost all the content because it wasn't properly planned, and so you're only going with the things that are most top of mind. Even though you're getting maybe different topics, somehow or another you're gonna weave in these same sticky statements, these same basic principle thoughts, and then you're gonna be like, dang, I wasted 4 hours of shooting all this stuff. It all sounds the same. I can't put this out back to back to back. Have you ever noticed that happen as well, Joe, with people?
Not really. And the funny thing is it doesn't even really matter if you're saying very similar things. If you scroll through my Instagram and you like really dissect my content, I say a lot of the same things. You're like, I say the same thing or the same topic in a different way, right? I
Hmm.
phrase it differently. Because what I've seen, and this is something I learned from Alex Ramosi, is like a lot of times, you should put out content that maybe you've used in the past, or like you repurpose a piece of content, because 90% of the people that see your page and go through your content, they don't even remember it. So number one, people don't even realize that you're like redoing this content, or like you're saying similar things in a different manner. But on top of that, a lot of times people just need to be reminded here and there of that same topic. It's like there's so many pieces of content on Instagram at this point, Brian, that like, you're not going to be like this Aristotle coming up with like groundbreaking new information. Right. So it's like you probably like you could scroll through like my explore page and see all this motivational stuff from like David Goggins or whatever. And it's stuff that we know, it's stuff that we've already heard in the past. Like this isn't new stuff, but it's good to have like a little reminder here and there. So whether I'm like posting about, DM outreach or staying consistent with content, is like again, we all know that we have to stay consistent with posting content, and I can give solutions for that you've probably also heard. But
Hmm.
it's good to have that little reminder, right? So
Yeah.
I wouldn't even focus necessarily on worrying that it's going to sound the same, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much. People aren't viewing as closely as we all think they are. And I also think it's good to like mix and match. Like I don't just batch 10 posts and that's all I post. Like I might have some little thoughts throughout my week that I want to just pull up my selfie camera, and that's where you can give more like intentional, authentic, just right off the cuff type content. So you kind of mix it in with that. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. Yeah, I get that perspective. I appreciate that perspective, right? And I'm gonna listen to a Gen Zer on this one. My only gripe to that would be for those who, and you know this, right? I've heard you even mention in your content, for those that have been following along, haven't made a buying decision yet, and
Mm-hmm.
they're following along to see just how deep is the well, right? How deep is the well? Or are they saying the carbon copy of the same thing over and over again? I give you my money, chances are I'm gonna come in your program and hear a carbon copy of the same thing over and over again. So that's the thing that I caution against. It's not necessarily the new people that's going to experience your content. It's for those who have been following you. There's so many people that I've taken on as clients that's been watching my content for 2 years nonstop, unbeknownst to me, because they may have didn't show me in the like, but they're committed every day and they're watching every single post. So for those folks, I am just cautious that I don't sound like some broken record in what I'm putting out, because the chances are they would assume this guy is one dimensional, and if I pay him, I'm probably gonna get much of already what I heard.
Yeah, yeah. No, I completely understand that. And I think that's why the research phase is also super important. It's like understanding what do your audience and clients or potential clients actually need, and then like writing down those different topics, right? Like I might make a few videos on the same topic, but there's a whole other topic that I haven't tackled yet that I want to batch for like that next week's worth of content.
So when you look at social media as a whole, right? And I'm so glad to have you here today because you are a Gen Zer. Although I'm a millennial, at the top end of millennial, I still identify with certain things with respects to this Gen Z movement, right? You guys are the new generation. There's a lot to learn from your generation, although you get a lot of flack in your generation. I happen to think, just like any other subset of people, there's going to be people that over-index and there's going to be others that don't, right? And
Mhm.
so when you look at that, I think certain practices are archaic and they're dying right before our very eyes, and people don't want to like accept it, right? And one of those archaic principles and practices is passing out business cards. Okay. My philosophy is that when we pass out business cards, the only value that that thing has at this point is giving somebody something to remember your name by, because they're going to Google you later if they're remotely serious about finding out who you are. Everybody wants to know your social footprint. And so I made many videos on this, and I just so happen to be scouring your page, and I hear you say social media is the new business card. Tell them why,
Mhm.
Joe. Tell them why.
Well, think about it. Like you just said, like business card, like physical business cards these days, it's very outdated. So I always tell people like your Instagram is not just your new business card; it's like your resume at this point. So it's like they can go to your Instagram, they're gonna scroll, they're gonna see what's up. I mean, even like older generations, 50s, 60s, 70s, like they're even getting on Instagram at this point too. Let alone all these other Gen Zers and millennials. Like obviously, the first thing that they typically do if they want to hire somebody or if they're looking something up or they're trying to figure out like, okay, what is this person all about? They're not going to care about like a little business card with like your email and your name and your website. They're going to probably go to Instagram, right? So if they open up your Instagram and you don't instantly show people that like you're an authority in your space, that's going to put them off and you're probably losing a lot of business. So that looks like, making sure that you're an authority in the content, you know what you're talking about in your content, but also just like the overall aesthetic, right? Like making sure it looks high quality, it's professional. Like the funny thing, which we can get into, is like the DM outreach. Is like I get so many DMs from people trying to pitch their copywriting or their email marketing or video editing, and then especially video editors, you would think they'd have like some case studies, they have like some decent content on their page. I go to their page, they got like 50 followers, horrible profile picture, no content, no results. It's like you got to practice what you preach. Especially for me, like I need to practice what I preach if I'm going to help people with branding, but even just in general, it's like if I go to your page and you're not serious about your personal brand, it makes me not take you as seriously. And then I'm just going to go to some other person who does exactly what you do, but they have a massive brand. They have trust, they have credibility. You can see that they're an authority. So like it's massive to have a credible first impression because yeah, it's essentially your new business cards, like your resume.
Yeah, for sure. 1000%. And I'm glad you were here to echo my sentiment. It's not, you actually are the second person that I've heard say that outside of myself. And
Mm-hmm.
it really caught my attention because it's real. And for those that still hold on to this archaic idea of what it once was, then you're just going to get passed by. Because I promise you, even if you're in a more conservative space, as I was at this fun launch like
Mm-hmm.
event last March or something, right, in Orlando, and it was with hedge fund managers, all the rest of it. So while they may not be on Instagram, they are on YouTube, they are on LinkedIn. You have to have some type of social footprint for the space that you're in, and so that's extremely important. And I highly recommend don't waste as much money going out getting thick paper and emboss this and all the rest of it. Just make sure that whatever you put on there, they can go and find something better than what they saw on that card when they find you finally. Okay.
Yeah.
So you touched on it. Let's get into it. Can you first explain what is DM marketing or DM sales for those that don't know?
Yeah, so I mean, DM marketing, DM outreach, you can call it what you want. It's essentially just like the organic way to go out and reach people. It's honestly the lowest hanging fruit, in my opinion, because it's technically free. It's like you can go to your Instagram right now and you can DM 50 plus people every single day who are like in your target market who you think could be a good fit for your service. So I think this is what a lot of people typically start with, but there's a lot of things that I see them doing wrong. One of them we kind of hit on, they just don't have a good first impression, so that's not going to get you good responses. The other thing is like they're not targeting right, the scripting isn't right. But just in a nutshell, it's basically you utilizing your Instagram page to go find other people, whether it's like active followers of yours or just new people. Like I'm pretty sure with you, I'm not surprised that I reached out to you because I mean I think my team's probably reached out to like 250,000 people at this point. Like Brendan Boyd, for instance, like we reached out to him in 2020 and like now we're obviously like working together. It's insane, right? But it's like
Exactly.
my team went out and they just reached out to every possible person, right? Even if I didn't know them, just to kind of plant that seed, spark that conversation, and a lot of them lead to like really solid relationships or networking or opportunities or just like straight business. Like I've closed deals in the DMs, I've closed deals on calls that I did just by sending a DM and like introducing myself and hopping on a call with these people. But yeah, it's basically like the alternative to running ads or doing email marketing. Like I think if anyone's gonna try to get leads through their social media, DM outreach is like the first thing that they should do before anything else.
So, and I know we ain't going to give away all the sauce, but let's give them a little bit. When first of all, let's talk about getting over the fear of reaching out to strangers, right? Because we've been told all our life to never talk to strangers, right? And then secondly, how like what should be my lead in when I had these should I just immediately offer somebody something? What should I be saying to these folks when I say hello, Joe?
Yeah. So yeah, that's an issue. Is a lot of these people they'll sell in the DMs straight. So what I do is I'll send a DM. Again, you want to make sure your targeting is on point. So let's just hypothetically say you know exactly who to find and like where to find these people. You DM them. You leave a quick conversation. Usually my DM is relatively short. Like I don't want you to do like a massive paragraph or like story. I'm not going to read that. Most people aren't going to read that. Our attention spans are like 2 or 3 seconds at this point. So it's like if I go to my request and I see like this massive like paragraph, I'm just like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. But the other side is like they're not being specific enough. So like the other side of this is they'll just DM me. They'll say like, "Hey Joe," and then just do like a little arm emoji or something. And I'm like, I don't know what you're trying to get at. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what the intention is here. So again, I'm probably not going to respond. So I do something kind of in the middle where I'll just say like, "Hey John, just checked out your page, love the content." So number one I did there is I gave a compliment. People love compliments, so love the content, love the recent post you did. Just wanted to reach out. How long have you been in X space for? How long have you been an entrepreneur for? So the two things I did there with that second line is I basically gave an intention, wanted to reach out and connect. So now okay, I'm here to reach out and to connect. And then that last thing I did, which is super important, is I asked a question. Right? If you're sending a massive DM or a small DM, if there's no question there, you're not enticing a response. Versus if you say like, how long have you been doing this for, or how's everything going, or you know, now just ask a random question that kind of is tailored towards them a little bit. That's going to entice the response, and it's going to get your response rate way higher, right? So that's what I would do as far as like the scripting. As far as like fear of not or the fear of reaching out to people, I think you just have to, quit being a sissy and just do it. You either want to see results or you don't. Like I never had that issue. Other people, I mean,
Joe, you've been
never.
selling chickens online since you were 8, bro. I mean, I know you ain't had that issue.
Yeah, I haven't really had that issue. I haven't heard a lot of people have that issue either. Like I've heard people say they don't want to post or like they have fear of getting on camera, and that's understandable. But um, yeah, if you're scared to reach out to people, I mean, the best way to do everything is just go ahead first and get it started, right? It's like
Yeah,
with content, it's not going to be perfect. With anything, it's not going to be perfect. You're probably going to be nervous. It's going to be awkward. But as you build the repetition, I mean, you get used to it.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, I love that. You know, we have to understand that we're talking to people,
Yeah.
right? And the best thing we could do even now with AI is establish ourselves as a human. You know what I mean? Like ask somebody a thought-provoking question. And oh, by the way, psychologically, if you meet a stranger and you ask them to talk about what they do, everybody loves to talk about what they do. So that's a great question that Joe led in with by saying, hey, so how long have you been doing this, right? For those of us that are proud about the things that we've accomplished and what we've been able to do, we're going to speak up. And especially if we yet don't know what Joe is really reaching out about, we're going to tell Joe what we do because he may be interested in becoming a client potentially. That's a great lead in. I hope you guys are taking notes on that piece. And more importantly, that you actually deploy it. Okay. So you said something, Joe, in that exchange about could be alternative to running ads. So let's talk about ads for a second.
Mm-hmm.
What is your philosophy on running ads? What is the most important aspect when you run ads?
That's a good question. So, step one is again making sure your copy is on point. You could go run ads, and if you don't actually speak to your audience correctly, you're just flushing money down the toilet. Another thing, this is going to be real sauce, is I don't think that you should even run ads until you spent like years in the trenches with organic marketing. Like, believe it or not, I've been like doing DM outreach, organic marketing, and creating content for 7 years. I didn't start running ads until 5 months ago, right? Like you probably just now start seeing my ads. That's because I want to take my business to the next level, right? But what I see a lot of people doing is they'll just jump right into ads. They don't know who their target is. They don't know how to speak to them the correct way. They don't have the right angles in their copy. And so they're not seeing results from that. The other thing is, let's say you do start seeing results and you're pouring all your money into this and you're putting all your eggs in this one basket with ads when you haven't figured out the organic side first. Now let's say like I'm actually seeing this happen like actual friends of mine and people in business where it's like they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on ads and they're getting good business, but then their ads manager gets shut down or like something happens with the ads.
Yeah.
And it's like now you're screwed here because you can't run ads anymore at all. And you haven't really cracked the organic side yet. So it's like you're done, right? So I think you guys should really figure out how to crack the organic marketing side first. Dialing your copy, dialing in your targeting before you start running ads. Because what I like to see it as, you want to crush the online like organic side first, and then you want to use ads to like be a big amplifier, right? You should already be making like 5, 10, $15,000 per month profit just through organic marketing. And then once you do that, then I think it makes sense to get into ads, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And actually, at the time when you found me, I had a different Instagram. That one got hacked. And but when we started up that page in 2018, I think it grew to almost 40, 50,000 followers, something like that. Um, we made our first $1 million before we ever turned on an ad. I didn't even know that you could run ads at that point, to be
Yeah,
honest
yeah,
with you. It was just like we were just doing outreach on the DMs, the whole nine. And it's some work for sure, but I think the connection is just so much stronger when you do it that way, right? We obviously use paid traffic now for very specific reasons, but what's also important is people, again, know, like, and trust, right? So the 7-Eleven effect, people want to experience you for 7 hours in 11 different capacities. So when they come to from your ad to your page, they need to see something worth staying for, right?
mm,
And so can you talk a little bit about that, Joe, about how important it is for, if you are going to run paid ads, that your actual content is good?
yeah, yeah. And that's the other thing is like if you do have your page in check, it looks good, it's credible, you have a really solid first impression, you're gonna get way more conversions with your ads. Like I've seen a lot of people, they run ads, but their pages just suck, right? Or they just don't know how to talk to their audience correctly. And again, it's like flushing money down the toilet. You're spending all this money, you're not seeing results. So yeah, I think it's super important that you make sure that you have, a good bio, good profile picture, highlights, content, everything is on point and it looks high quality and it's professional. That's obviously going to get you way better conversion rates at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100, 100. So this is the segment of the show, Joe. So this is the Believers in Business podcast, right? I'm obviously a man of faith. It's not a prerequisite that anybody is to be on here, by the way. They just have to be good people with good integrity, good intentions, and all those things. But the folks that listen to this show all want to have a level 10 life in the most important areas of our life, which is our faith, fitness, finance, family, and freedom. Okay. And so I'm just very curious, especially you being a 22-year-old young high capacity man. How important is faith, or is it important at all in your business and the way you operate and going about your business?
I think it's super important. I mean, like if you don't have faith, you're screwed. So like, I think it's also important to understand that like God gave you a gift and like free will for a reason. Like I think a lot of people, they don't think that they're here for a reason. Like I'm a big believer that God put me here in this time for a specific reason, and like He wants you to max out your life. Like a lot of people think that it's bad to be rich. It's bad to chase your goals and be high performance. And I think that's a huge misconception. Like God gave you free will to go out and do what you're meant to do, right? If you have a gift and you have like technology and all this, why not utilize it? Like I think it's almost like a disservice to yourself and it's a disservice to God by not trying to live up to your full potential and like trying to not be as lazy, right? At the end of the day, and I think when things get hard, if you don't have something to kind of go almost talk to in a way, it just gets it's hard. It's like if you're going about life and you don't think that there's a God out there, you don't have like real faith. I think it's hard to, like, let's say you're going through something for a week or a month or even a year. If you don't have that like almost understanding that God's out there and He's watching you and like He knows that you're gonna pull through, it's hard. So I definitely faith is a huge
Yeah.
aspect in my success.
Yeah, bro. I love everything you said right there, Joe. Um, as you know, as an entrepreneur, right? Life in and of itself is difficult. In business, even more so. And particularly because nothing of what we do is guaranteed. We don't have every 2 week paycheck to look forward to. Then we have to have a lot of faith in that we're putting in these efforts and that they're not empty efforts and they're actually going to convert to something at some point in time. And to your point, who do you talk to in the waiting? Do you talk to your friends that don't even have a dream or been gave up on theirs, or that's constantly out drinking and smoking and hanging out and kind of YOLO every single day? Because if that's your support system, then how you gonna get very far? You have to have an understanding that if I didn't create myself, thank God, because I'm creating problems for myself that I can't fix. I gotta have something or somebody else that I talk to that can aid and assist me in those moments, right? So I think that perspective was absolutely rich. This is one that I'm very curious of. Obviously, you're a young man. What's your fitness journey like at 22? I know what mine was back then, so I'm curious about yours.
So like if you go back on my Instagram and you scroll down like 2, 3, 4 years, again I get like skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. So like the funny thing is I was like a super skinny kid in school. Like people would pick on me because I didn't have muscle, right? So that was always kind of like an insecurity, I guess. I didn't really start actually working out until I was probably 18 or 19 because I grew up on a farm, so there was so much work to get done over there. So it was almost like this like 360 type fitness. It's like all day, every day.
Joe,
So
just tell him you've been cock strong all your life. That's what we call that. You've been cock strong, pun intended, right? Because you were out there dealing with cocks every day. So
exactly, dude.
yeah,
Yes, 100%, man. So I mean, I always had a good work ethic and strength, I guess you could say, but physique like wise, like I just didn't look like I wanted to look. And again, I love the pillars you came out with, and people have different ones. Is like people say it's the core four: faith, family, finance, all that kind of stuff, fitness. So I think it's super important to be healthy, be fit. Again, I didn't really start working out until I was probably 18 or 19 because that's when I moved out. So like I graduated high school, immediately got an apartment in the town, moved off the farm. So at that point, my wife's also really good at cooking, so like she'll make me like massive meals, and I gained like 20, 30 pounds. So I went from being like a super scrawny kid to like kind of being a little chunky, right? So I kind of wanted to, at that point, I think it was maybe, 19 or 18. And I was like, okay, I think it's time to get a gym membership. So I started going to the gym, working out. I remember I wasn't good at all. I didn't know what I was doing,
Mm.
but I was consistent. Like everything I do, I try to be the best I can be. I try to be as consistent as possible. I never quit. Like that was a big thing my dad taught me, is just like never ever ever give up. So even with the gym, it's like even if it was taking a while to see results, I just went every single day, like 6 days a week. I trained like different muscle groups and stuff like that, and eventually got knowledgeable in like what to actually be doing.
Mm.
To this point, which is like, yeah, now I just work out, 6 days a week, 5 days a week, different, like I pretty much just do like the bro split, chest and tries, back and buys, legs. So that's basically what I do now. But it's super important to be fit because, or at least healthy, right? Like you don't have to look like a Greek god, but it's like if you have that fitness and that energy, it just it builds your confidence. It just gives you more energy to go throughout the day. Like we're both super busy. Like I guarantee you, we're like on the clock, and it's like if you're just too much overweight or like you're eating the wrong shit, it's like you're just like feeding your body with garbage. It's like
Yeah,
you just drain your energy,
for sure.
and you're not going to be able to perform at the highest level. You're not going to be able to show up to your family or to your clients or on the podcast as you should if you're not healthy, if you're not at least somewhat fit.
For sure, for sure. It's so funny, man. I was not expecting you to say that. So I got a like super similar story in the sense that I graduated high school. I was probably 145 pounds, right? I could never gain weight. That was the heaviest I ever been. And I may be giving myself five, right? I may have been 140. But I played football. I ran track. I maxed out at 285, weighing 138, 140 pounds, right? So I was always super strong in the gym, not cock strong like you on the farm.
Yeah.
But was strong nonetheless for my size. But then it was like this wave of time where it didn't seem that cool to be in shape the way I was always like chiseled. And I just wanted to see if I gained some weight. And so similar to you, I gained 10, 20. I was up in college, had a baby, my now wife, then girlfriend was cooking me three, four squares
Yeah.
a day. And I was like, the first 20 was cute, right? And then it was like the other
Yeah.
10 kind of crept in. And I looked up, bro, and I got on the scale. I was 208. I'm like, oh, this has gotten out of control. You know what I'm saying? Like completely out of control. I never forget that day. I got on. I grabbed a sweatshirt. I went down to the fitness center at the apartments, and I got on the treadmill and never got off. 18 years later, right? And so, I so identify with that story. We have to be careful of what we challenge ourselves about, right? I never thought I could gain weight similar to you, and then you gain it, and you like, oh my god, it was a lot easier to put it on than to get it off. And so now, for the last 18 years, I'm like, I never want to go through that again. I never want to work that hard to have to shed that weight. And so I just adopted the lifestyle. 5, 6 days a week. I got a 5 pound threshold that I allow myself. If I get to this point, it's like all the alarms go off. I got to get the weight back down. And it ain't because I don't eat ice cream on the weekend. It's because I love gelato on the weekend, which is why it's got to be a lifestyle thing for me. I don't want to have to diet because you just die to it, right? I want to be able to enjoy myself in moderation or maceration when I want to, and still be like, okay, I'm good. So what would you say though, Joe, to your point about being high capacity, very busy, for the people that say they can't make time for it, that they would love to work out, but they can't find time?
I hate that excuse. I hate it for whatever you're using it as, whether it's I don't have time to create content, I don't have time to spend time with my kids, I don't have time to work out. Because at the end of the day, like you're gonna give time to what you make a priority, right? Like if fitness is on like the top level, like for me and you, I guarantee you, fitness is probably like top 3, 4 on the list of like the million things we gotta get done. And the reason it's at the top is because it's important to us,
For
right?
sure.
So number one is it's a top priority, which means it's gonna get done. Same with content creation. If content creation is on like the top priority for my list for this week, and I'm gonna get this done on Saturday, I block out time, I can do it, right?
Yeah.
It's like we all have the same 24 hours. Like how is Elon Musk doing all this stuff with SpaceX and Trump, and and whatever he's doing these days. Like, bruh, like you can't make the excuse of like I don't have time, because
For
at the end
sure.
of the day, you're gonna give time to what you find important. If eating chicken wings and watching football on Sunday is the top priority and it's important to you, you're gonna do it, right? But if
Facts.
fitness is actually important, you're gonna make time for what's important to you.
Yeah, I love what you said because the difference between billionaires, hectomillionaires, millionaires, and people that make $40 an hour is what they do with their time. Because God gave us all the even playing field with 24 hours. Like we all have that we can say is status quo for all of us. It's about how are we investing those minutes and those hours, and what does the return on investment look like? Because your fruit will be indicative of your root, right? It just always
Mm-hmm.
will be. When we look at, and I'm very curious to this one, right? So you are 22, you are married, I just heard. How
Mm-hmm.
is it being a young man in business with a wife? Any children yet?
Yeah, one daughter. That's
Get out of
funny
here,
story.
man.
Dude, it's funny you mentioned that too, with like you gained weight around that time you had a daughter, because that's kind of like what I saw. And apparently, there's science behind that. Like men usually gain a little bit of weight before their kid comes for like protective reasons, or I don't know. It stems back to like evolution, but yeah. So one little 2 year, she'll actually be two in about like 3 weeks. She'll be a little 2 year old.
Crazy, bro. And mine will be 22. Well, mine is 22. She get married in February.
Wow, that's awesome.
Crazy, right? Had her at 18. It's funny, man. Because now I'm looking at my old self. You know what I mean? So it's really crazy to me right now. But so talk about that. Because again, people have children, people have spouses, people have a lot going on, and they're just like, man, I got this thing that I really want to bring to the market, but I'm struggling with like finding time or family balance. Like, how do you manage all of that?
Yeah, again, it's just you give time to what you make a priority. So I've tried to balance. There's really no balance. Like I don't know who said it, but it's almost like it's kind of like a seesaw, like a teeter totter. It's like there's
Hmm.
gonna be seasons where you're gonna be really focused on like work and grind it out, and like let's say like I just launched a product, 4 or 5 months ago, and a lot of my time was like spent on like building this offer, creating the modules, and getting clients. So I didn't have quite as much time with the family. But then on the flip side, there'll be times where I'll spend a week and a half on a vacation, or I'll just take off Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and like just spend time with the family. So like you kind of go through seasons, and that's honestly like what makes life super enjoyable. It's like if it's like completely balanced, like think of a seesaw or a teeter totter. If it's completely balanced, you have your 9 to 5, and then you got the family after that, and it's like every single day is the exact same. There's no fun in that, right? It's like that's why I like going through these little seasons, right? Of like,
Yeah.
it's really exciting business. We're making progress. We're hitting our goals. We're growing and expanding. And then there's also times where it's like you're, being able to like spend time with your family and do fun things and experience that. I guess to answer your first question, I think people have different opinions on getting married and not getting married, or at least getting married super young. Like I got married, I was 19 when I got married, and
Wow.
we had our daughter a year after, so
Okay.
she's about to be two in about 3 weeks or so. But yeah, I got married at 19, and that's obviously not super common. And especially with this red pill stuff coming out, like I think Andrew Tate and these guys they're cool and all, but like Justin Waller, for instance, I don't know if you know him, but one thing he said, which I actually made a reaction video on, is like, don't get married until, if you're a man, don't get married until you're mid 30s or late 30s, because you need to be super successful. You need to like focus on you first so you can be the best version. And I just thought that was really twisted because number one, it introduces a lot of complexity, because it's like now you don't know if these women are here to like get your money, or it's like why are you actually you know here, right? So there's that. Then there's also like if you can find the right person, especially early on, who can like push you. Like you look at even like I know Grant Cardone and all these people, like they didn't find their spouse necessarily super young, but it's like when they did, stuff just blew up, right? Like all these people have a really powerful woman or man behind them who's like pushing them behind the scenes. I think that's super important. And also, it gives me a deeper purpose. It's like I have my daughter, I have my wife. So I'm not just doing it for me. I'm not just, like, I look at these single guys and there's nothing wrong with it, but it's like at the end of the day, there's like no real substance or like, deep purpose behind your life. It's like you
Yeah.
make all this money just because of the sake of you wanting to make money and, doing whatever. But it's like when you have like a family, you have a wife, you have a daughter, kind of puts a fire under your ass. It's like, okay, now it's not just me. I kind of have to, I have to support, my family and give them the life that they deserve. So I don't think it really holds me back too much. I think it actually helps me and pushes me to achieve what I'm supposed to achieve.
Yeah.
But I think if you have the right person, if you know it's the right person, I think it's better just to do it young and get it done instead of having to like delay it and wait and kind of just coast, if that makes sense.
Bro, it's so much wisdom oozing out of you, man. It so first of all, the scripture, right? He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Make no mistake about it. By finding your person and doing life the way that God intended for you to do it in marriage, you will find more favor, period. And it ain't just financially, it's the peace, it's the joy, it's the prosperity, it's so much that comes along with that from doing it God's way. And so I just respect everything that you said. I appreciate what you said because my daughter, even at 22, getting married in this day and age, right?
Hmm.
People like, what? And she was like, I've been with the guys for 6 years. What else
Yeah,
are we waiting on? Right?
yeah,
Like he's my guy. Like why do I have to take this traditional route of being a party girl and going through all these guys to figure it out? And she was like, no, they got engaged 3 years ago and they're getting it done, And so I'm forever grateful for that. And I agree with you, me meeting my wife at 17, she was 19. We had our daughter. I was 18, she was 20. Um, I wouldn't be the man I am today without her, Joe. I'm just being honest. Would I be successful? Yes, to some degree, in whatever right that is. But I'm talking about the holistic success, the ability to build something and share it with somebody that you really love and enjoy, that you call your best friend, that sees the best of you and the worst of you, and just all of her support and the different roles that we've had to play over these 2 decades plus that we've been together. It's nothing better than that, bro. It really isn't. So I respect it, man. I respect it. I appreciate it. What
yeah.
would you say to the 22-year-olds out there? Not even just the 22 year. I don't even want to keep harping on that fact, although it's just very mind blowing, right? To see what you've done at this age, because I can promise you, while I was on my trajectory, I wasn't doing this at 22. Okay, um, but what would you say in general to people about finances and financial literacy? Obviously, you're a businessman. I still believe that being a businessman and having financial literacy are two totally different things, which is why a lot of business owners struggle to keep money. I've been one of them at certain points in time. How important would you say financial literacy is? Are there any recommendations you would make to people in business or even a 9 to 5 in terms of just how to manage their money better?
That's a good question. So there's two sides of this, right? Like there's people that take their money and they just kind of hoard it in the bank because they want to save it and they want to kind of play it safe.
Hmm.
And there's the other side, which is like you see all these like gurus online spending a ton of money on like Lamborghinis and all this other junk, and they're renting and blah blah blah. Spend 10K on a dinner or whatever. It's like that's also stupid, right? So I think there's always a middle ground, right? There's always like that perfect mean, which is what I try to look for. It's like I'll put money in the bank. I have a lot in the bank that I can use in case of emergency, so I'm not stressed about money.
Hmm.
But I'm also not scared to spend money. And when I say spend money, I mean taking that money and making it work for me. So that can look like putting it into traditional investments. But what I think is even more important is, it's cliche, but like your best investment, right? So I take a lot of my money that I make and I put it into myself. I build my skills. I build my brand. I've spent over $110,000 the past 7 years to get to where I am. And I believe like investing into mentors, investing into knowledge and all this stuff, it's going to help like shrink and collapse time, which I guess can explain like why I'm here at 22 is because I've taken what all these people have spent years or even decades to accomplish. And I just take it, implement it in my business, follow their blueprint. And that's exactly what I help other people do. It's like if you want to learn to build your brand, create an offer, get leads on social media, you can spend 2, 3, 4, 5 years like I did to just spin your wheels and figure it out. Or you can hire a mentor and hire a coach and learn it in 2 to 3 months, right? So I think it's very important that you look at your money and be smart with it. Make sure you have that little nest egg just in case something happens, or just making sure you have something there. But then don't be afraid to spend money and like invest. I don't like to say spend even. I like to say invest because you're ultimately investing it
Sure.
to make it tenfold or 100-fold, right? Any investment that I ever put into myself or just any investment in general, I always have done it out of the idea that I'm going to make this back
Mm.
some way or
Yeah, man, that's so good. I'm glad you brought that up because that was one thing that I did want to talk about a little bit because, you know, don't sound like you came from a whole lot of money. Neither did I. Right. My dad was a firefighter for the city of Detroit for 30 years. My mom was a cashier at a grocery store for 25 years. So work ethic was taught to me at a very young age. But
Yeah.
how to build wealth, you know, how to become rich, none of those things existed. Right. And so in order for me to become the person that I become, I had to get in the rooms with people that were like-minded, similar interests, and had success in the areas of life that I wanted to have success in. And so one of the dumbest things that we find ourselves doing is asking advice to
Mm.
people that don't have the experience and or success in said area just because they're friends or just because we call them mom or dad or just because we call them friends or family. And it's just ignorant to think that you can ask somebody that's never done what you're trying to do and had success in doing it how you're going to be successful while doing it, right? And so,
Yeah.
if you don't have the people around you, then you have to pay to have the people around you, which will require an investment in yourself. And I say this and I mean this, I believe the biggest barrier for people to invest in themselves is not because of who and what the investment is. I think they just don't believe in themselves.
Mm.
They've made such a habit of not following through on their commitments. They made such a habit of not believing in themselves. They made such a habit of not taking chances and sticking to it that when they're faced with an opportunity that could forever change their life, they'll speak negatively about the situation. Oh, it's too expensive. Oh, it's too that. When at the core of it all, Joe, I believe they just know that they're going to spend the money and not do the work. And so they don't.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people will ask me, like, do you think everyone can be an entrepreneur? Do you think everyone can find success? And I think to a certain extent, yes. But at the same time, like, not everybody is cut out to, put in the blood, sweat, and tears to see results, or to put in like 8 months of work and like not see
Mm,
results initially, but
mm,
continue to grind. Like, I do think there is, like, are entrepreneurs born or made? Like, I think there is a special thing that, like, you need to have, like, a little bit of grit and, like, tenacity to see like real results, right? Like, you can maybe make like 3, 4, 5K per month and do okay, and that's fine. But if you want to like go like to where like the big leagues and make like 30, 50, 100 grand per month profit, then I think it takes like a specific individual.